Look around. You can find cars like these on AutoTrader, like that car riding your tail. Or if you're tailgating right now, all those cars doubling as kitchens and living rooms are on AutoTrader too. Are you working out and listening to this ad at the same time? Well, multitasking pro, cars like the ones in the gym parking lot are for sale on AutoTrader. New cars, used cars, electric cars, maybe even flying cars. Okay, no flying cars, but as soon as they get invented, they'll be on AutoTrader. Just you wait. AutoTrader.
Life is made up of many gorgeous moments. Cherish them all, big and small, with Blue Nile. Whether it's for yourself or a loved one, Blue Nile's unrivaled selection of expertly crafted fine jewelry and statement pieces help make all your moments sparkle. Blue Nile's experts are on hand to guide you, and their diamond guarantee ensures you get the highest quality at the best price. Celebrate a life well lived in the most radiant way and save up to 30% at BlueNile.com. That's BlueNile.com.
Check engine light on? Take the guesswork out of your check engine light with O'Reilly Veriscan. It's free. Ask for O'Reilly Veriscan today.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
It's really cool.
Bonjour, hello, and welcome to the Rosbeast Rugby Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things French rugby, bringing you the best of top 14, Pro de Deux, national team, national, and all the best things about going to watch rugby in France. The towns, the cities, the bars, the restaurants, the wine, the food, and everything else in between. I think I got that just about right, Richard.
Terrible. A pale imitation, but yeah, we'll let you off on this occasion.
Yeah, for the bonus midweek podcast, we thought we'd change it up and get me to do the intro. Partly because Richard's had a few pints, so I assume he wasn't backing himself. Didn't want to stumble on the opening words.
No, I didn't want to put myself in a hole for other episodes where, you know, if I go too sort of elaborate and verbose on this one, I won't be able to hit previous heights. So left it to you this evening, mate.
Fair enough. So we are doing a kind of bonus special edition based on the announcement of the France squad for the Autumn International Series, or Autumn Nation Series, I believe the hashtag is, and that's the official name of it. I think quite a lot of the squads seem to have come out yesterday. I think Scotland, Ireland, Fiji, Tonga. Don't know if there's been any others. I feel like they all came out yesterday. We're recording this Thursday evening. France named a 42-man squad from what I saw a few weeks ago. For every kind of tournament, whatever, they are going to name 42-man squads. Obviously, that came out at the same time that they said they weren't going to send any of the big guns to New Zealand. So that kind of took the highlight, but 42-man squad every time. It's quite a decent chunk. Perhaps that's why we've got a few of the new faces in there that we might not have seen in the past. But Richard, your initial thoughts on the squad?
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because there are some proper names in there that are, you know, incredibly exciting from the standpoint of, could they get their first crack, their debut? A few guys coming back in who maybe haven't played for a little while. My overwhelming feeling, though, is I don't think Galthie, when it comes to the 23, is going to diverge too much from what he knows, which has been a little bit of a theme of recent times, which makes sense because they've been incredibly successful, albeit lost out in a couple of big games. But I do think there are one or two individuals I do genuinely think in that sort of 23 when it comes to be selected, particularly for the Argentina and the All Blacks test. I think there's probably one or two spots where we might / I'm hoping to see a couple of new faces in, but I don't think when it comes down to it, there'll be too much of a departure from what we're used to. I don't know if you disagree or if I'm being a little bit dogmatic about it.
I think, well, the first thing to say is that we should have said at the start is that They play Japan on the 9th of November, the All Blacks on the 16th of November, and Argentina on the 23rd of November. So they've only got 3 games. I had to keep checking that because I think everyone else has 4. I know England certainly play New Zealand on the 2nd of November. So they've only got 3 games, which feels like not many. So that certainly reduces the likelihood of seeing some of these new faces. However, and I think the timing of the Japan game actually possibly further reduces the likelihood of some of these names. I think Galthie, after the Six Nations that they had, after the fallout from the summer tour, they actually played quite well in that first game. The fallout from the summer, I think he'll want to get back on the horse and get his side back into rhythm and start building again ahead of the Six Nations. I think had it been like it was a couple of years ago, I think 2022, they had Georgia in the last game in, I want to say, Bordeaux. That was a bit more of an experimental team. I think with this, they are less, with it being with Japan being clearly the weakest opposition, they are unlikely to kind of experiment too much for that, I think.
Yeah, no, I think you're probably right. No, I think they'll not mix it up. I think there might be maybe a couple of first caps at least off the bench, but I think they'll be seeing it as an opportunity to, I don't know, find a bit of cohesion ahead of the All Blacks game, which is enormous because it always is. Like it's not something you can go into undercooked. So yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. Although I wouldn't be surprised if they maybe rest a couple of the dead certs. But yes, I don't think we're going to see a full sort of experimental Barbars S side.
I guess which way do you want to go? New players or the players that have been left out from previous squads?
Let's talk briefly on who's not there.
So I have in front of me, I don't know if you want me to share it so that you can see it as well. Shall I share? I'll share it for you, Richard.
All right, thank you.
It's the return of the nicely color-coded spreadsheet. So this middle column is the summer tour, and this far right column is the players that play. There wasn't a kind of 42-man squad or anything. It was a squad for the Ireland game, a squad for the Italy game, and a squad for the Wales game. So they did it the Ireland game would have been Ireland and Scotland. The Wales game would have been Wales and England. Interestingly, they've started naming their original club. I thought that was quite a nice touch. Only 2 clubs that have 2 players in it. Unsurprisingly, the one with the Talfopreneurs, they was from the same club. And we know this, Richard, is of course Sampé, which is Maxime Luco and Charles Oliver.
Yeah.
But anyway. So in the Six Nations, there were a total of 44 players named in squads, of which 29 are in this squad. So that's relatively good continuity. Of the 42/45, because there was a few players that were initially named and then kind of got cold, I think it's something like 11 have made the cut for this. If I just do that quickly, he doesn't count.
For anyone who's listening to this is the very much the scribblings of a madman accountant. There's a lot going on this sheet, but yeah.
So of the 45 players that were named in squads for the summer, only 11 have survived. And I think we kind of knew that at the time. We kind of tried to predict who might have earned themselves a spot. And I think we said Colom, we said Frisch, we said Atisogbe, we said Nucci. Guillard was very impressive. We did also say Saran was the player of the tour. He hasn't made the cut, much to my chagrin.
You've been one man social media wrecking ball trying to bring everyone up for the Saran cause, but I don't think his omission's that controversial in the grand scheme of things.
The sense I get, and maybe this is a highlights reel type situation, more people are pissed off about Baptiste Couillou not being there. And so he is one of the 45 players that was named in the summer that that hasn't made the cut for this. And that, I mean, we went into it on Monday's podcast. Garrick seems like the man they want. Lukaku is the counterbalance. He's the experienced guy. He could play for another few years.
Covers two positions properly as well.
Yeah, also he's a different style.
Different style. Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's just I feel like I was one of the original Baptiste Couillu fan clubs, and I absolutely love him. And I've no doubt in my mind that he'd do more than a job, but I think it just talks to the depth rather than any slight on Couillu or Saran, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think for me, Saran is the player most able to mimic Dupont, but there's an argument to say, why bother? Go for the most exciting, most out there, wild, tap and go, does what he wants type scrum half in Le Garec, and go for the most old school French nine, Petit General, control the pace of the game, kick him around the park in Lukaku. So I get that. A few other absentees, I guess you've got Cyril Bay, Julien Marchand, who I understand has a knock and could still be available in the squad for the New Zealand game. He's just not been named because he won't be training with them. Solo Tuolangi is injured. Nicolas Deporter is injured. Melvin Chaminade, let's not talk about any more about that. Hugo Ordu, Oscar Jegu, again, ruled themselves out. Also, just looking at players that have played in the World Cup, Pierre Bourgaret is injured. As we know, Roman Ntamack is injured. Anyone else you want to talk about that hasn't made the cut, Rich? Dorian Aldegheri, I'd say, is quite a big one. So it's kind of been all change at Thai Pro. I think he's a big one because of he's been there a while.
Experience
his first choice,
club standing, but I don't think that's remotely controversial. I think the three tight heads with Antonio, Colombe, who we've spoken about how much we love him at length, and Tatafu, who is, I mean, I think that's an astonishing sort of three first choice tight heads, to be honest with you. The other ones that stand out to me, obviously, I know he's kind of fallen out of favour for a little while. Cameron Wackie's had a little bit of a fall from grace. A guy who was kind of, I don't know, not far off one of the first teams on the team sheet.
His form has dropped off, like compared to where he was 2021, 2022, when France were playing some brilliant rugby. He has just his form is just not, he's still a brilliant line out forward, but other than that, like round the park, he's pretty poor these days. He makes a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, I think he's still like fairly, I wouldn't be surprised if we see him sort of, particularly in that, if he can refine a bit of form in that sort of hybrid second row six capacity. I don't think we've seen the last Cameron Wackie. The others, no, not massively. Marchand.
Astoy, we were quite impressed with over summer. I mean, you're battling out for second or third choice fly half behind Birdo. Birdo's had a good start to the season, but I think it's quite unfair in terms of continuity, I think.
I don't know if I agree with unfair, but I'm not sure I would have necessarily picked the only other out-and-out fly half as being Birdo over Hastoy. I think they're obviously nailed down. They'll play Jalabert, and I think that's probably a sign that if push comes to shove and there was an injury to Jalabert, they'd probably go Ramos, right? Because I think if they genuinely felt they needed another out-and-out 10, then Astor would be in there. I think they're maybe seeing Bourdieu as a bit of a different option, maybe a bit of a, not project player, but get him in the squad, see what he's about. Because he had a great start, hasn't he, for Lyon?
Yeah. I mean, he's only a year younger than Astor. But I think from what I can tell, there is actually quite a high chance that we see Ramos at 10. And Barre at 15. I don't know whether I wonder if it's like a creative differences. It's like a Lampard Gerrard type thing, or Gallagher brothers. They just can't agree on how they want to play the game between Jalabert and Ramos. Maybe, or Ramos. I get the sense that Ramos has got a bit of an ego about him. He's got a bit of There's a
Do you
little bit of
reckon?
There's a little bit of dickhead there, isn't there? Like, I just think Barre's form is just so woeful that he shouldn't really. He it is amazing he's in the
I,
squad. Like
I
compared,
would. Oh, I think surely they go Jalabert and Ramos at 15. That feels
I think
wild not to.
I think the amount of Ubebe players in there suggests that, at least in Fabien Galthie's mind, there is not a Toulouse Ubebe split. And I think
Yeah.
he's going to be willing to play quite a few of those Ubebe players.
If we move this forward a little bit, who do you think of the? So there are 8 uncapped players, right?
Yeah.
I think.
Just to hang on, just before we go move on, the other player that people were calling it for was Danny Priso. A lot of people were quite surprised about that. There's no standout loose head, I'd say.
No, there's
Jean-Baptiste
not.
Gross is second choice at Toulon behind Priso. Sebastian Telford-Veneur seemed to be getting a lot of hate, but I think he's quite
It's
decent.
decent, yeah.
I imagine they'll start with Wardy and
Yeah.
go Gross on the bench or Telford-Veneur on the bench. I think Wardy will probably be number one, but I think they're probably waiting for a few of the younger guys to come through. Someone like Lino Julien, who could be a loose head, or Zachary Fan.
Be interesting as well, won't it? If how they go, particularly I guess Argentina and the All Blacks. Like it does feel like a little bit of a chink in the armour.
Oh,
Loose head.
Argentina are absolute balls at scrum. Like they are rubbish at scrum time. That game that they beat the All Blacks, they only won because there wasn't a scrum for 60 minutes. The second game, there was loads of scrums and they got absolutely destroyed. Like they're useless at scrummaging, that Argentina pack.
Joel Lomax might have something to say about that in the middle one. Obviously not for Argentina.
Yeah.
But...
Oh no, I'm saying I'm not disagreeing on New Zealand. I think New Zealand are great. I just think the great Argentinian scrum is a complete fallacy now, like the Italy one, but even more so. I think the Argentinian one is, even though they've got one of the best scrummaging hookers in the world, I still think their props just useless. So
interesting. Okay.
Sorry, I cut you off on the uncapped players that have come in.
No, I was just going to say, who do you think? So for me, I think there is a place for of the uncapped players who are.
So the uncapped players are Pierre Bocheton, Marco Gazzotti,
Brennan,
Josh Brennan, Maxime Lamont,
yeah,
Tavita Tatafu, Roman Buros, Paul Cost, and I think that is it. It is it. So you've got a lot of kind of back row, second row type players. You've got a centre, a fullback, a tight head prop.
I think a few of them might get a go in the Japan game just because the quality of the uncapped players is pretty high. Like some of those guys there have been proper standouts in the top 14 for the last 12 months. I think when it comes to the sort of crunch games, as it were, I think there's a place for a back rower.
Yeah.
Of one of those guys.
Ahead of Boudon.
Well, I think particularly if they do a 6-2, I think possibly over a Boudon. So they'll go if he's fully fit again, they'll go Cross, Yalanche, Aldrit.
So you're dropping all of them.
Well,
it's so hard. Like I think
I still think there's a place for or possibly an opening for a Lenny Nucci or a Gazzotti.
Yeah.
I think they're the two real standouts who arguably, regardless of what comes before, could challenge, not to underplay how good the likes of Yalanche and Aldrit and Cross have been, but I think they're not a million miles away from usurping them regardless, to be honest.
Yeah, I think Cross was, as I've said before, should have been France's Player of the Year internationally. Aldrit, I don't think is going to get dropped anytime soon for the big games.
No.
I guess Olivon is 31. The whole squad is quite young, so there won't. I think that's part of the reason why there won't be like sweeping changes at any point. But the two of the older players are Olivon and Cross. So Olivon is 31. Francois Cross, I think, is 30. Yeah, he is. Gillon, 28. So there's the likes of kind of Boudon, Nucci, possibly Boschton if they want to play him in the back row, Gazzotti, those guys that there will be a.
I think Boschton's behind the other two.
Yeah, I'd agree. Yeah, I think they want him to become a second row, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I think those guys, certainly like Nucci and Gazzotti, there's an element of that. At some point, that guard will change, and it might kind of change en masse. But I think that, yeah, you're right. I think at some point they might want the dynamism, ball in hand of Gazzotti or Nucci, and I think maybe it will. Actually, no. Nucci was so good in Argentina and as brilliant this season as well. I think it probably will be him. Good, but I wouldn't be surprised if Gazzotti gets a look in as well, just as a dynamic ball carrier.
Yeah, I think if I would have. I love Nucci, but I think I would have Gazzotti if particularly they're going for that 6'2". I think I'd have him in the 21 jersey. I think he's a phenomenal player.
Yeah, I personally would, and I love Boschton, but yeah, I think Gouillard was brilliant and has been really good this season as a second row option. So I think Boschton is probably not going to play. Lamotte, can he challenge Barlow? I think Barlow's brilliant. Malvaca is one of the
that's the other one
in the world.
I was going to pick up on. I think I don't want to go against my Cass boys. I love Gates and Barlow, but Lamotte, every time I see him play, he's brilliant.
I don't think his line out throwing is quite as good as Barlow. It's not. He can have games, or he'll have a half where he'll just miss like 3 in a row.
I don't know. I don't think he's quite that. I don't think he's as far off on his line out. I think everything else you get with him is.
It's more that he's got it
so
in.
Good.
Maybe it's within him to have a stinker. But I think Barlow has been on the fringe for so long. He's had a really good start to the season. I'm kind of surprised not to see a few more cast forwards in there, maybe.
On Lamotte and Barlow, I wouldn't be surprised to see them both
have a go.
One of them start against Japan and the other on the bench, and almost like a bit of a shootout. Yeah.
And I guess with the back rows, we talk about dynamic ball carriers. I think they will get Tavita Tafu in there at some point. Partly to cap
definitely.
him. I don't think it matters that they need to cap him. I think he's probably committed to France now. I mean, he's been in France for 5 years now. And also he's been in a squad over the summer, wasn't quite eligible. He's now available. I think they're going to cap him. I think he's a massive carrier. The oldest player in the squad is Weenie Antonio. So while Colom seems to be the heir apparent to Tavita Tafu is just a different threat, ball in hand. But I think he will get a cap. Of the backs, I don't really see either of Buros or Cost getting a game, I don't think. I think there's just too many other options. And also, and you've kind of got this with the likes of like a Nucci, or even Colom, or possibly even Talfa Vanua, like the guys that have come in that are uncapped, the guys they're competing with have also only got a handful of caps. So it's not like you're kind of saying, oh, well, this guy's been in position for a while, we kind of probably need to move on for him. It's, someone like Cost is up against Gaetan, who has got 5 caps, if that, or Atisog Bey, who's got 2 caps, or Barre that's got 5 caps, not that they're all in the same position, but I'm kind of looking at the profile of those sorts of players. Like they need to be given a chance, and they were the ones that got there first, so they kind of deserve a proper chance first. So I don't think Buros or Cost are going to get a game, because I think there's just people. Yeah,
I don't think I love Buros, but I don't think maybe this time, particularly given so you got Ramos, you got other options, and BRA's looked brilliant when he's played 15 this year. I think there's a bit of a gap. Part of me that wouldn't be that surprised if they plump for Cost at 13. I think he's just feels like he's been a little bit of a duck to water going into that, like, as first choice at Toulouse. He was fabulous in the Heineken Cup final, or whatever it's called now, the
Champions Cup,
Investec Zebra Champions League, whatever it is. I don't know. I'd like to see Gaetan get a go at 13 with Deporter not there, but it really wouldn't surprise me. I think he's got those. Well, I think he's evidence that he's got those like real big game minerals.
Not to say that. I just think they'll give a crack to Gaetan. Gaetan is the man in possession. I think it comes down to that.
Yeah.
And they've liked him for a long, long time, whereas Cost hasn't quite had the length of the length.
And he's brilliant.
Yeah,
and he's
exactly. Gaetan
and he's from Croydon, so
yeah. Any other toughs? I guess 12. Will the centres just be Dante and Fiki? Do you think? Is that all kind of a moot point? Are they just going to go to?
I think they probably will. To be honest,
certainly against the All Blacks.
Yeah, I think they probably will, unless they decide to. They did it a while back, didn't they? And they pushed Fiku out to the wing and sort of had that like extra defensive cover and try and bring something a bit different in. But I can't see that happening. I think they'll be. Yeah, I think it's Dante Fiku,
Peno and Bielberet, Peno and Labelle and waiting in the wings, and Gabin Villiers back.
Yes, this was it. When I texted you earlier, that was the one that I missed, and I'm quite happy with, because he was for such a long time, not such a long time, but a decent stretch, such an integral part of that Galthier team, and he sort of faded, and I think there were a few questions raised after when they went out in the quarterfinals. Would he have been a better horses for courses pick? I don't know, but he's such a brilliant player, and yeah, he offers something different as well. So if they do, I think if they, particularly off the bench, if they go for three backs, he kind of gives you a bit of everything, right?
Yeah. I guess all that's left then, Rich, ahead of this preview, or to finish off this preview, obviously there's a few weeks away. How will France do in the Autumn Nation Series, do you think? With this
I think
we are both going to be at the All Blacks game separately. The middle game, which promises to be quite a game. Quite nice that it's not the first game for either of them as well. They might be into their stride a bit.
I think they'll breeze past Japan and Argentina, to be honest. And I think they should probably beat the All Blacks, who, I mean, it's a brave man who doubts New Zealand, but also that England away in the series just gone in the summer weren't a million miles away, and I think pound for pound France are at least as good. Could come down to Terrell Lomax doing a job on the whichever loose head they pick. I don't know. It should be an amazing game, but I think they it's fair to expect they should win them all. I don't think that's unreasonable.
Yeah, I think we are kind of back slightly to a little bit of a up and down France, as I kind of said during the Six Nations, and we kind of saw it over the summer as well, I guess, although there was some fairly extenuating circumstances in that second test. I feel like they've got it's a 2-1 series autumn for them. I don't know whether that one will be
the
All Blacks lose to Argentina. Yeah. Or whether the All Blacks just have one of those days. Like we saw it in their two games against Argentina. They lost one week and then put 47 points on them the following week or whatever. I think this All Blacks team is a little bit France of the early noughties. Or mid noughties. It's kind of which one's going to turn up. And Argentina are as well. So that you kind of never know who's between those three sides or those games that France have got against those two, which way it's going to pan out.
Yeah, and you'd think, I mean, we're already well over a year on from the start of the last World Cup. Like, Galthie's going to have to start identifying a few guys who are, because he's been sort of, for everything we talk about, terms of, jouet, French flair, like his actual selection on match days has been quite conservative for quite a while, right? Apart from when he's had to with the Argentina tour. So you would, I don't know, I think who will be the 2-3 that gets a look at? I don't know. I think Gazzotti, Hope, Gaetan, and maybe another to put themselves in the frame for the Six Nations proper.
We've not even mentioned Atis Ogbe. Can't believe that.
Yeah, but
next cab off the rank on the wing. Put him ahead of Labelle or Villiers. But yeah, the average age of the squad is 26. So I think there's not going to be whole sweeping changes because there's so many 26, 27-year-olds in the squad that they're all going to be hitting their prime for the next World Cup as well. Tony D is 27, and he's one of the more experienced players. So, yeah, I think it will be pretty similar to how they pretty similar to the Wales and England games, I reckon.
Yeah,
in Six Nations.
Shame they're not playing South Africa. That'd been a nice extra, wouldn't it? But alas, get the juices flowing for whenever that happens next.
Excellent. So we will be back on Monday to do all things top 14, Pro de National, and also obviously all the petit fours and digestifs and all of that fun and games from French rugby. As per usual, we're just going to keep this one as an aperitif, an hors d'oeuvre ahead of the Autumn Nation series. Rich, you can follow us. Where can you follow us?
You can follow us in person if you're particularly weird. You can follow us on TikTok, Instagram, X, Threads. I think that's it.
And you may well be even watching this on YouTube, so you know that you can subscribe to us on YouTube. And we are at Rosbeast Rugby on all of those. But until then, aside from where you might see me or Rich's face on various social media outlets, until Monday, au revoir.
Au revoir.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.